Hi, this is Nanette Hosenfeld with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Thursday, July 9th, 2020. Looking at fire potential impacts over the next few days, we are looking at some breezy and extremely dry conditions Thursday through Saturday across the southern part of the Great Basin and the Sierra Front. We'll see very low single-digit relative humidities across much of the southern part of the Great Basin and very poor overnight recoveries. So really a significantly hot and dry period over the next few days for the area. And then on Saturday, we will be seeing some isolated dry thunderstorms across parts of Utah. Over the past 24 hours, it's really been dry across the Great Basin, no precipitation to speak of, and no lightning. Initial attack activity yesterday was light with not a lot of new fires across the Great Basin. ERCs are really quite high across the central and southern part of the Great Basin. You can see quite a few stations now in that 90 to 96 percentile and a couple in the 97th and above. Typically, we'd be seeing the monsoon moving in this time of year and moderating those ERCs, but that has not happened. Those ERCs are beginning to reach record territory. Looking at those ERCs in a little more detail, you can see here on this map that GB32 again is right at that record area. As I mentioned earlier, typically our ERCs would be decreasing right now, as you can see in the trend in GB32. But with the lack of a monsoon, our ERCs continue to rise and will continue to do so really for the foreseeable future without any strong monsoonal surge in the cards for the week. Live fuel moistures continue to decline across the Great Basin. Generally across the northern part of the area, live fuel moistures are right around normal, decreasing to below normal as you move into the central and southern part of the Great Basin. 10-hour fuel moistures are incredibly dry across the southern part of the Great Basin. There has not been really any precipitation in those areas for the past while, and it's been abnormally hot and dry. So those 10-hour fuels are quite dry across the central and southern part of the area. Satellite this morning shows a low pressure system making its way into the Pacific Northwest, and that will influence our weather here over the next few days. So for today, hot and dry across the Great Basin. We are looking at some enhanced winds ahead of that low pressure system, and those are of a particular concern across the Arizona Strip and the Sierra Front, where conditions are quite dry. Looking at that in a little more detail, you can see the wind gust forecast there. On the left, looking at wind gusts in the 25 to 35 mile an hour range this afternoon across some isolated areas of the southern and western portions of the Great Basin. Our minimum relative humidity values for the afternoon are quite notable. There are a lot of single-digit relative humidities in the forecast, so again, bone dry across the area. Then just taking a look at our overnight recovery, this is the max relative humidity forecast. So the highest that relative humidity is expected to get in a lot of the central and southern part of the Great Basin is still in the teens. So not only will it be dry in the heat of the afternoon, we won't see much recovery overnight. As we move into Friday, continuing to see those hot, dry, and windy conditions. The main area of concern on Friday with those winds is across central and southern Nevada, as you can see highlighted on our map there on the right. Looking at wind speeds again, maybe in the 15 to 25, some 35 mile an hour gusts across the area. Not as strong of winds as we would typically be highlighting, but with the really low relative humidities again on Friday, those winds are significant, especially with fires that we have in the area. Again, relative humidity is incredibly low, a lot of areas with single-digit relative humidities in the forecast. And then again, Friday night, very poor relative humidity recovery, maybe a little better than what we're going to see tonight, but still overnight, Friday into Saturday, looking at really low relative humidities. Moving into Saturday, we start to see some moisture increasing across the area. This is an issue because of the potential for some lightning to impact the area on Saturday, and lightning after such a long hot and dry period is very problematic, and so you can see we're highlighting the area on the map here that we're concerned about for the lightning threat on Saturday with that increase in moisture. Looking at Saturday, again, also looking at the potential for some gusty winds across portions of western Utah, central and southern Nevada, and again, overall really low relative humidities on Saturday. Over the next 3 days, really not much is expected in the way of precipitation in the area. As we move into Sunday, again, looking at the potential for some moisture making its way into the Great Basin, not looking like really any precipitation expected with that upper level moisture increase. And again, we have highlighted here on our map, on our significant fire potential map, just the exceptional heat, the really dry conditions that we have seen that are so abnormal for this time of year. Again, typically we'd be in a weather pattern where the monsoon would be sending quite a bit of moisture into the southern and southeastern part of the Great Basin, but because we're stuck in an unusual weather pattern, the high pressure that typically brings the moisture into the area has not been able to establish itself. As we move into Monday, just looking at a continuation of the really dry conditions, especially across the central and southern part of the Great Basin. Moving into Tuesday, we could see some enhanced winds with the low pressure system moving to the north of the Great Basin. Again, the biggest impact as far as the heat and the dry conditions will be across the central and southern part of the Great Basin. Further north, we could see a moderating of those temperatures as it looks like a weather system brushes by to the north of the Great Basin. And moving into Wednesday, models starting to hint at some moisture starting to make its way into the Great Basin, but still we're not looking at the setup on the large scale that would lead to a monsoon. So really through next week, not looking at any real monsoonal moisture starting to move into the area. And our 7-day significant fire potential map is down, and so our forecast for Wednesday is not currently available. The next 7 days, it's just so dry across the area. You can see no precipitation expected across the Great Basin. Maybe just the far northern reaches of our Great Basin moving into central Idaho could see some precipitation, but really incredibly dry. This is very unusual, again, for this time of year. And not looking like any relief in sight, really, looking out into the 8 to 14 day period, which takes us to July 22nd, continuing to look at an extension of these hot and dry conditions, especially across the southeastern part of the Great Basin. So those ERCs that we are looking at right now, starting to move into record territory, will just continue to climb through the middle to end of July as we wait for the monsoon to appear. That's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Our information is on the screen, and you can also find us on Twitter. Thank you.